Volkswagen, a mission impossible. The German carmaker will escape its emissions scandal largely unscratched. That is bad news for a firm in need of an overhaul. Volkswagen new boss, Matthias Müller, was no doubt hoping that his firm launches of new model at the Geneva Motor Show this week would help it move on from the scandal over its cheating in emission tests. A British prankster had other ideas. As VW's sales chief, Jordan Stackman, unveiled a new version of the Up City car, Simon Brodkin, a comic whose past targets include FIFA's former boss Sepp Blatter, Gates crushed the presentation in overalls, with a spammer and a cheat box which he tried to fit to the car before being let off by a security man. Mr. Mueller can afford to see the funny side of the stunt. He owes his job to the scandal. He was brought into the place Martin Winterkorn, who was forced out when it emerged last September that 11 million of the company's diesel cars had been fitted with software to cheat test for nitrogen oxide emissions. This week, VW admitted that Mr. Winterkorn had been sent a memo in May 2014 about irregularities in the car's emissions, but said he hadn't had read it. Speaking to The Economist in Geneva, Mr. Mueller promised monumental change. But whatever VW does to make amends, the more far-reaching overhaul that it needs seems unlikely to happen. The emissions scandal was a symptom of a corporate culture focused on ramping up output to 10 million vehicles a year and topping Toyota as the world's biggest carmaker. In the quest for sale, profitability suffered. Operating profits had hovered around 11 billion euros, $13 billion, for years despite a big expansion in output, with the group's huge returns from China disguising poor performance in Europe and losses in American emerging markets. Mr. Miller says he is determined that VW not be paralyzed by the emissions affair. Its sales fell in Europe and America in January as even overall demand for new cars rose. But Mr. Miller says 2016 has started well and that he expects little lingering impact from the scandal. He may be right. General Motors' faithfully emission switched and Toyota's unintended accelerations forced both firms to make huge recalls and generated plenty of bad press. Yet sales recovered within a few months. Uncertainty about financial penalties will hang over VW for some time. It has delayed its annual report for 2015 until April, then the picture should be clearer. America's Department of Justice could in theory levy a fine of 60 billion euros, but isn't likely to go that far. Some analysts reckon that the cost of settling with the authorities and private litigants worldwide and fixing the affected cars of compensating their owners might come to a grand total of as much as 30 billion euros, roughly the amount by which VW's stock value has fallen since the scandal broke. Other thinkers could be far less. Both GM and Toyota expect their fines of around 1 billion euro. If braving for its purity provides painful but not life-threatening, the impetus of overall VW will lose some of its force. Change is needed. VW is as powerful of brands of verifying fortunes. Almost two-thirds of its profits come from its premium car brand Audi and performance car division Porsche C-Chart 1. The main VW brand is a drag of the group. Sanford C. Bernstein, a research firm, reckons that in 2014 the brand's profit essentially came from parts sales and royalties by its joint ventures in China, and that it made no money in its core European market. Mr. Miller is making a start by attempting to revamp the culture of a company in which he thwarted a strict hierarchy, sent decisions, big and small, to the German engineers, ran VW from its headquarters in Wolfsburg. Mr. Miller has replaced 7 out of 10 senior executives. Some other outsiders, though many of the new faces are like Mr. Müller, VW insiders ingrained in the firm's ways. He is, however, trying to speed up sclerotic decision-making by giving the heads of the group profusion of brand more responsibility. A comprehensive restriction plan is promised for later in the year, but the team has said it will concentrate harder on profits. As a start, it will make €1 billion of cost cuts in the VW brand next year. But analysis reckon the company, which alone among big carmakers failed to reduce costs during the final crisis, has plenty more to cut. For no good reason, its administrative expenses had trebled since 2007. The firm will also cut the extravagant number of model variations and offer more than 300 last count and an absolutely long visit of options. The choice of steering wheels on the VW Golf is set to fall from 117 to a mere 43. VW will reconsider all costs, says Mr. Müller, including even its hallowed research and development budget. In 2014, it was a €3 billion, €5 billion more than Toyota's. But it's unclear what VW's huge outlaws have yielded. It missed the craze of SUVs, it is lagging in the main rivals in electric cars technology, and it lacks a cheap platform for budget cars in emerging markets. A project to standardize the underpinning of many VW's group models, the platform called the MQB, seems not to be proceeding the expected cost savings. Mr. Müller is resistant, however, to disposing of any part of the firm, even a unit that makes marine diesel engines. A gruff no is his response when asked if he would consider selling it, though it's unclear that his division of another that builds lorries or Ducati, a maker of exotic motorbikes, is a core part of VW. The most intractable problem is low productivity, especially at the mass market VW brand. The group labor costs have risen from around 13% of sales in 2007 to almost 17%. Outside China, where it makes cars in joint ventures with local firms, the group's 520,000 workers made 6.7 million vehicles in 2014, or about 13 each. This is about the same productivity as the Daimler's Mercedes division, which makes only high-margin premium models. As other car makers have shifted production to low-wage countries, VW has remained largely stuck in Germany. Since 45% of its employees are based there, many enjoying a four-workday week. The VW brand's German factories are among the highest cost plants in the industry, says Patrick Hummel of UBS, a bank. But VW's commitment to Germany is absolute. We are a German company, says Mr. Müller, and will preserve German jobs. Powerful unions would be sure to resist job cuts. Mr. Müller says that they agree on the need for reform, but admits to disagreement over how it might happen. Unions could also prevent a wider rethink that might shift investment from the VW brand to others that are more profitable. The supervisory board, made up largely of union representatives and nominees of the state of lower sanctity, which holds a 20% stake in VW, has the power to resist most changes of strategy. Maybe an outsider with a mandate of change, if backed by the Porsche Peach family, which controls the voting shares, would have achieved more. But Mr. Müller had seemed tired. The good bits of the VW group will continue to prop up the underperforming bits. That burden may get heavier. Premium and low-cost car makers are thriving while the mass market, the core VW's business, becomes more competitive. Odd as it sounds, VW could have done with a bigger crisis.